Hey guys, I want to make a off-leash e-collar video for you so you'll have a better understanding of how to use the e-collar, and then you can just see how Timber responds to it in general. So I have my speaker box set up so you can hear the work I'm doing. So you hear that. Hopefully you can hear it. I think you'll be able to. I don't want it to drown out my voice. And then I'm layering it over every single command. So, you know, we have that foundation of commands that she understands now. And so you're gonna wanna get used to pairing the two together and making sure that you turn your e-collar on every single time you give her one of those commands. And then the key behind that as well is that it's not just about tapping it, it's about holding it until you get a response. So the word and the e-collar are gonna turn on at the same time, but the e-collar is gonna turn off when you actually get a commitment from the dog. So that's hard for people to remember, and something I'm constantly having to remind people of, because they do wanna just tap it once, and or they wanna repeat the command over and over and over again, and I don't do that either. So I'm gonna give you some examples of what that's gonna look like. Let's go. So I'm not letting go because she's not coming with me. So I'm going to keep saying, let's go. And let's go. This is another really important thing that I didn't focus on at the last session, but is important for you two to understand. Which is, when I say let's go, that means follow me this way. Let's go. So that's what that command means. Let's go means follow me this way. I also use it to release dogs through doorways and off place and out of their crate. Place. So if you think about it coming out of the crate or out of the door or off place, follow me this way. Place. So right there, she tried to get off, and the second her feet hit the ground, I held the e-collar button and said place again until she got back on. So that's a great way to maintain place. Now, let's go and Timber come are two different commands, and it's going to be very important that you learn the difference between these two and make that distinction for Timber. Let's go. Timber, come. Here. Sit. Good girl. Place. Sit. So what I was trying to do there, I could tell that she was air scenting. She was onto something. She didn't want to commit to me. I could see it in her eyes. So what I was trying to do there was get her locked on to something enough to pull her away from me so I could practice getting her to come when called. So that's why I was kind of backing up and trying to move away from her. So when I say Timber come, that means Timber come, go into the here position, which is my word for healing. And then after you go into that here position, I want you to sit. So Timber come, here, sit. I say Timber come when she's far away from me. I tell her to go into the here position when she's about 2 to 3 feet away from me. And then when she gets into the here position, I say sit. Let's go. So there's another example. And you can hear the variations in my e-collar. Place. So right now you're hearing a longer duration because she's not getting on yet. So I need to continue to hold that e-collar down until I see that there's a true commitment to getting onto place. Same with recall. I need, oh my God. That neighbor drives me nuts. Anyway, good job for not freaking out. Same thing with the recall. I had to hold it down for a few more seconds, and then the here and the sit went really smoothly, so you just heard a momentary beep. So those are important things to distinguish on the e-collar from Timber. This is what she's learned, so any other form of e-collar work is probably going to be confusing to her and she won't respond as well. So I'm going to do it so you can see it from this angle. Timber, come. Here. Sit. Good girl. Let's go. Place. See? Just hold it. She knows what it means. It's when the hesitation is because it's whether or not she feels like doing it or not. So, but I want you to think about this like an electronic leash. So I'm not correcting her. These are low-level numbers. What I'm doing is actually mirroring what I would do if the leash was on. So that would all, the duration in which you hear the e-collar on would be the duration in which the leash pressure would remain on. So it actually represents leash pressure. And if she was hesitant to get on place, I would just hold the leash taut until she did. So they actually work simultaneously with one another. And that's what she's learned and why it's so effective, because that leash always made it happen. Now the e-collar is an electronic leash, it's gonna make it happen. Now there's some physical movements I want you guys to be aware of. So when Timber gets locked onto things, you'll notice I keep walking behind her. So you're actually gonna be walking backwards a lot. And it's going to be in conjunction with her prey drive. So whether it's her nose, because sometimes it's actually her nose that pulls her out. It's not that ear up fixation. That's not actually what always does it. It's actually, a lot of times it's her nose. So whatever it is that pulls her out into prey drive and away from her handler, you're going to be actually doing the opposite and walking directly behind her, right? So the first thing you do is, oh, the dog isn't tuning into me. I'm gonna walk backwards. I'm gonna walk far away. Timber, come. Here, sit. And then there's some other physical movements for the here that I wanna show you. So let's see if I can set this up. Let's go. Not with me anymore. She's completely disengaged. So I'm going to back up behind her. Come. And then right when she gets here, I'm going to flick my leg back here. Sit. Oh. So it looks like this. Sit. Here. Sit. There's some physical motions that you guys are going to have to program yourself to understand that she's actually learned almost, and they're almost as influential as the e-collar. So these physical movements she's very much paying attention to and aligning herself with my body. So the psychology behind backing up, like I could tell right away that her nose pulled her out, and then she got locked onto something. Her ears became erect, she got locked onto something. Then I knew that I was really out of the picture. So I backed up behind her, out of her peripheral vision. What that allows me to see is how much is Timber paying attention. because sometimes I back up and she backs up with me. So then I know that she's actually paying attention to me. Even if she's sniffing the air, there's still a connection between her and her handler. But when she starts to get locked onto something and I back up out of her peripheral vision and she doesn't regard me at all and just continues to wander off, then I know that her brain is so fixated on something else that it doesn't have anything to do with me. So that's a good psychological reason as to why I back up. Now, once I call her to me, the dog is gonna follow my leg, my left leg. So if I say place, I know that was confusing. I was tapping my leg. I think she thought that was, that's never been a release, so I don't know why she would think that, but for some reason it seems like she did. So they're gonna follow my leg. So if I say here and flick my leg out, she's gonna follow that leg, and then I'm gonna bring it back together, right? So it's like here, boom, and then her head is gonna follow my leg so that when I bring it back to this position, it's gonna be lined up with my left leg. Now, there's a key component to this that I'm probably not gonna be able to recreate because Timber's super good at the here position now. But if I get blow-offs, I back up a step. So let me put a hypothetical situation together. I'm going to use this broom. I've never done this before. I'm being inventive today. But what I want is for her to be lined up with me. Sometimes, let me do it this way. I want her to be lined up with me. What I noticed with you guys is that she wants to get right here and actually wants to tilt her body a little bit in front of you. And that's a no-no. I would never encourage you to set that expectation for her and keep it as part of her behavior because it's a blow-off. She is getting in front of you and actually kind of claiming your space by leaning inward over the top of you. So she does this, and she didn't follow your leg like I just explained. You're actually going to take a step back, one full step back, and do it again. Here. And if you bring your leg back and she does this again, guess what? Take a step back, here, until you get this. This is what I'm looking for. And those types of expectations are going to be the difference between you and I. So it might seem overwhelming at first because she's definitely going to blow you off. I saw that at the last midweek. There's going to be some relationship dynamics that need to be established in order for her to take you guys seriously. So that's where those blow-offs come from is, well, I can't take them seriously. There has been no reason to up until this point. But if you're consistent and persistent and make sure that that is your expectation, then it'll become her expectation and then you won't have to remind her anymore. It's when we are inconsistent that they will not give it to us. So I wanted to make sure to make that clear because in you mentioned not feeling very patient, and the fastest way to get what you want is to be persistent and consistent. You don't have to be patient anymore if you establish a standard for the dog and without, not giving in, not saying, oh, that's good enough. By standing your ground and saying, no, that expectation is right next to me. I don't want you in front of me or over the top of me. Then that becomes the dog's expectation. And then you don't have to be patient anymore because they'll do it. So that's my kind of motivation for you in moving forward and really embracing the patience for a while, embracing the consistency and holding her to the same level of expectation, so that you can get to a point where it's easy and you're not, there's no combativeness or frustration or just throwing in the towel, but instead a dog who's just very willing to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving her again. Let's go. Started to wander off and I didn't say anything. She just followed me on her own. So that's what I'm looking for, right? Is a dog who does it on their own. So I just sent her out. So I said, go ahead. Either one, go ahead or go potty. They're both indicators to the dog that they're free to go and they're not in a command anymore. So I said, go ahead. And she's over by my fence line sniffing. So that's a good, that's part of the commands, right? There's a free command. Go ahead means go ahead and do your thing. I'm waiting to see if she might have to go potty. Timber, come. No response. Good. So you can't see it in the video, but come. Here. Sit. Go. Place. So you can't see it in the video because it's just too far away. Sit. But basically, seated. But basically, if you think about where her head is positioned, this is what she was doing, right? So I said Timber come, and she was doing this. Now the camera is me, right? So I'm the one. The camera's technically going to be what I'm looking into Timber. She's going. When Timber did this, I turned the e-collar off. That showed me that she was on her way to me. And then halfway through, she goes, I'm on my way. Oh, wait, what's that smell? And then the e-collar turned on again. It's a really good example of why I hold until I get the response. So she's worried about Hillary leaving now, so I'm going to do it from behind, and maybe you can see what I'm looking for. So look at her head. Timber, come. Good. Good job. Here. Here. Sit. Let's go. Here. So that time, sit. That time, Timber didn't want to get into the here position. But that example I gave you, actually, you know what? I'm going to set it up again. Come here. Here, place, sorry, sit. I'm going to give you this example again. I might have to use this in the future. So I gave you this example, and that particular example, she wouldn't commit to the here position, and she was actually behind me. So what I did is I took a step forward and said, here, and so she lined up with me. So I'm basically doing the opposite of the dog. It's a dance. She's moving forward, I'm moving backward. She's moving backward, I'm moving forward. I'm constantly going the opposite direction that she wants to go to lure her back into my space to show her where I want her to go. So it's a dance. Now, I want to go over the commands real quick, and then I'm going to go over e-collar numbers. So I've gone over let's go. That's a casual follow me as well as a release word. We've got Timber come. Timber come is the most committed command you could ever ask for a dog. So whenever you say Timber come, it needs to be followed up with here and sit. and then sit there for a little bit and let her soak that in. Let her feel that, right? So whenever you're working her, if you don't want her to come over to you and sit, you shouldn't be saying timber come. If you're just doing those turns that we went over in the driveway, they should be let's go, not timber come. Give you a real quick example. Let's go. Let's go. Good job. Let's go. Let's go. Place. Good. So that's the turns, right? The let's go. Then we got the timber come, here sit. We have place. Place. I know, I said those words. I did say those words. She's a sweetheart. Okay. She knows down. So sit down, place. Place means stay. So she absolutely needs to stay on place unless you release her. So that's the only time she should be coming off this board, is because you've released her. And I've actually shown you a couple examples in this video of how to reset her if she does break place. Okay, then we have leave it. Out. Out means drop it from your mouth. So like if I'm doing playing with toys or something, out to get the toy from her. If she picks sticks up in her mouth, that's a big no-no. That's a prey drive thing. So we're gonna say out and not let her have sticks in her mouth. Leave it would be a great example for the fixations, the reflections. So when I do leave it, I need to make sure I actually influence the brain to leave it. So again, it's Ecollar timing. If I'm timber, I'm going to go down to a number she can't feel on the Ecollar, and I'm fixated right in this direction, and you say leave it, it shouldn't sound like this. Leave it. Look at my face. It hasn't even moved. What I want to see is leave it. And if she goes back to it, leave it. She goes back to it, leave it. I need to see the head actively leave it. I need to see the eye contact break in order for the leave it to be effective. So that's a leave it. Out means drop it. Crate means go into your crate. Go ahead or go potty is the free word. And I believe that those are all the commands. So let's go, sit, down, place, come, here, leave it, out, crate, go ahead. You are going to be using all of those commands a lot. A lot. Okay, so now that I've gone over the commands, and that body language portion is very important with the falling back behind her, calling her to you, flicking your leg out, you know, so these are all good pieces of information that you can keep rewatching this if you forget, you know. This is why I send videos, so you have it on always as a reference point. Let's talk about e-collar numbers. When I started Timber today, when she's off leash, her e-collar numbers are much higher. She's much more aware of the freedoms that she has. So she works typically on an 8 to start when she's off leash. I like to think of the e-collar as the barometer for the brain. So it's not really so much about the number as much as the response I'm getting from the dog. I have a feeling her numbers are going to be much higher for you because that's going to be her way of trying to basically blow you off and not listen. So you have to be willing to really utilize your dial and fluctuate your numbers based on her response. Timber, come. Sit. Timber, sit. So you see all that, I don't want to sit. I don't want to sit. I don't want to sit. So I went 8, 9, 10 until she sat. So I gave her a couple seconds on an 8, didn't do it. Gave her a couple seconds on a 9, didn't do it. Went up to my 10, she sat. Let's go. Place. Another example would be that recall where she kind of blew me off in the far part of my yard. I went 8, recalled her. She came off of it. She blew me off. I went back to my 8. She was not going to listen. I went to my red button, which is my boost button. No, my boost button is a +5. So if she's on an 8, that's going to make it a 13. And that is a great way to say, come on, move forward with me. Let's go. Get over here. So, you know, the order of my e-collar work looks like this. Black S, which is the number on the screen. 1, 2, 3, no response. Red S. 1, 2, 3, no response. I stay on my red S and I go up on my dial. And it's gonna look like this for you because you're probably gonna need to use 2 hands. For me, I can do it one-handed with 2 fingers. So maybe you'll work up to that point, maybe you won't. Either way, it's still as effective either way, and just understanding the order of things. Black S, red S by going up on your dial. That's the order in which you're gonna do it. And because the number is a barometer for the brain, you're gonna see really, truly her level of intensity about certain forms of stimulus. So if you have to go up in the 20s because you saw a dog, well, you already know that there's a high level of intensity behind a dog. So it may make sense that her numbers are significantly higher in that situation than when we're just hanging out in my backyard like this. So let's see if I can create some number differentiation right now. Let's go. Out. Oh, I thought you had a second in that. time instead of going straight to the boost, just because I kind of wanted to walk you through like the number change. So it was like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 worked. Come, please. And there was a point, because she kept blowing me off. So I was like, Timber, come over here. And she kept, I know. I'm confusing. I'm a confusing girl. She's responding. Cute. But at some point she kept trying to sniff shit instead of following through. So I hit the boost and that's when she came right to me and listened to my next command. So the boost works really, really well because it does seem to kind of push her to listen a little faster. And I think one of the things that you can take from this video is that I'm getting responsiveness, but I'm not getting a whole lot of twitching. So there's no negative connotation with this e-collar. She's never even received a correction on the e-collar itself. Everything about the e-collar represents her handler. It represents fair communication. It represents positive feedback. It represents pack drive. So the remote collar is not meant to light them up. It's actually meant to communicate with them. And that's why we use this number range more fluidly and more gradually versus just turning the dial up and lighting the dog up, so that we can communicate with them. Now, without it going into aversive feelings. So her number range is totally different depending whether she's on leash or off leash. Her on leash e-collar numbers usually are a 2 or a 3. Even if there's no leash pressure, just the leash being there makes her a little more responsive to the e-collar. And then when you get the e-collar off, she's more like an 8. But she can go up into the 20s when she's really worked up. She's not very often, at least not with us. But I definitely wanted to make that point clear because she's going to be very capable of going higher than those numbers when she comes home. So it's important that you don't focus on the number, you just focus on the response. And you've had plenty of examples of what responsiveness looks like and what you should be looking for in terms of her responsiveness. Now, the barometer for the brain with the numbers is going to let you know what you need to be working on. So if you're trying to get her off of a smell and she's in the 20s or even in the teens, you probably need to start calling her off of smells more so she can start getting used to listening to you when she's smelling things. If you have to go up in the 20s because you're working her off a dog, well, you guys already know you need to be working her more with dogs, right? That's just a given. But in the same respect that the 20 is going to indicate the intensity of the situation, her numbers declining means she's getting better. So let's say the dog's only a 12 now, well, then you're making progress. Maybe the smell, when she gets locked onto smells, maybe you don't have to go up. Maybe it's just her working number that gets her off the smell. That's progress. And in the same breath that we can measure progress through the e-collar, we can also measure decline. So if your numbers increasingly go up day after day after day, or week after week, or month after month, you're starting to see that you have to go into the 30s and the 40s to influence her, then that's a sign that she's not getting enough sleep, she's overstimulated, she's too excited all the time, you're probably going back to some old lifestyle habits. It's probably a lifestyle thing that's producing a lot of adrenaline and cortisol hormones. Those are the real indicators for why numbers are going to start to increase. Or you're not addressing her fast enough and you're letting her load and prey drive for too long. That's another indicator of higher numbers. So we will continue to work through all this, and I'll continue to try to set you up for as much success as possible, but I wanted you to hear all the different reasons for e-collar number fluctuation, right? So I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I think I was able to go over a lot and get you started on having a better understanding of the e-collar.